The impossible arrival, Admiral Fetner. Music stood on the command bridge of the Vapian flagship Eternal Vigil, his 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display. Before him, the holographic projection showed a sight that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. 17 Vathian battle stations, each the size of a small moon, lay in ruins. Their broken hulls drifted through space like the corpses of ancient titans. The Krell had done this. The parasitic swarm that consumed everything in its path had finally pushed deep into the heart of Vathian territory. For 12,000 years, the Vathian Empire had ruled the galaxy with absolute authority. They had conquered 600 star systems. They had subjugated countless species. Their military might was legendary, their technology unmatched, their dominance unquestioned, but the Krell cared nothing for reputation or history. They were a biological horror, a species that existed only to feed and multiply. They traveled in massive organic ships, billions strong, and they left nothing but empty worlds behind them. Thexer's second officer approached from the lower deck. Her name was Svara, a young commander with silver-caled skin and sharp tactical instincts. Admiral, the reinforcement fleet from the core worlds has been delayed again. They will not arrive for another 6 cycles. Her voice carried the weight of bad news she had delivered too many times recently. Thexer closed his eyes briefly. 6 cycles meant 6 days. They did not have 6 days. The Krell advanced scouts had already been detected 2 systems away. The main swarm would follow soon after. The bridge crew worked in tense silence. Around them, Varathian officers monitored hundreds of displays, tracking fleet movements, analyzing threat patterns, coordinating desperate defensive preparations. Every face showed the same expression that Thexer felt in his bones: fear, real fear, the kind that came when you realized you might actually lose everything. How many ships do we have in operational condition? Thexer asked, though he already knew the answer would not satisfy him. Svara consulted her data tablet: 43 capital ships, 112 cruisers, and approximately 300 smaller vessels. We have lost 60% of our fighting strength in the last 3 months. 60%. The number was staggering. The Vathian military had never suffered losses like this, not in any war, not in their entire history. The Krell were simply too many, too fast, too relentless. Traditional warfare meant nothing against an enemy that threw 1,000,000 ships at you without hesitation, without fear, without strategy, beyond pure overwhelming force. Thexer turned to face the main viewing screen. It showed the vast emptiness of space beyond their defensive perimeter. Somewhere out there in the darkness, the Krell were coming. And here at the outer rim, the last line of Vathian defense, they would make their stand. Suddenly alarms blared. Across the bridge, red warning lights flashed. Officers shouted reports simultaneously. Admiral, massive energy spike detected at Sector 97. Spatial distortion forming beyond the dead zone. Readings are off-scale. Admiral, something is coming through. Thexner spun toward the sensor station. The Krell, have they found a way around our defenses? The sensor officer, an elderly Varathian named Krex with scars across his face from a dozen battles, shook his head slowly. His expression was one of complete confusion. No, Admiral, these readings do not match Krell's signature. This is something else. Something very different. The dead zone was a region of space where 3 stars had collapsed simultaneously millennia ago. The resulting gravitational chaos created a death trap of warped space-time radiation storms and quantum anomalies. Nothing could travel through it. The Varathians had tried. They had lost 27 ships over the centuries attempting to map safe routes through the dead zone. Eventually they declared it impossible and stopped trying. Yet now, according to the sensors, something was emerging from that impossible place. On the main screen, space itself seemed to tear open. A swirling vortex of blue and white energy appeared, spinning like a cosmic whirlpool. Lightning arced across its surface. For a moment, Fexnor thought it might be some new Krello weapon, some horror they had not yet encountered. But then a ship emerged from the vortex. The bridge fell completely silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and stared. Vessel was small, absurdly small, compared to Varathian warships. It was perhaps 200 m long, sleek and cylindrical, with smooth curves and a design aesthetic that seemed almost artistic rather than military. Its hull was a dark metallic gray with glowing blue lines running along its surface in geometric patterns. What is that? Svara whispered. Dexter had no answer. He had never seen a ship like this. Not Varathian, not Krello, not any of the 100 other species the Empire had encountered. Krax was frantically working at his sensor console, his fingers moving rapidly across holographic controls. Admiral, I am running the ship's configuration through our database, cross-referencing with all known species and civilizations. Long seconds passed. The mysterious ship hung motionless in space, apparently observing them as they observed it. Then Krex's face went pale. His hand stopped moving. Admiral, we have a match. The database shows this design corresponds to a species cataloged 417 years ago during a routine survey mission in the Outer Territories. Thixer felt an odd sensation in his chest. Something about Krex's tone suggested the answer would not make sense. Which species? Krex looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. Human. The ship is human in origin. Word hung in the air like an impossible riddle. Human. Dexter knew that name. Every educated Varathian did. Humans were a primitive species from a small blue planet called Earth in an unremarkable spiral arm of the galaxy. The Empire had discovered them centuries ago during expansion surveys. Initial observation showed a civilization that had barely achieved basic space flight. They had chemical rockets, simple satellites, primitive computers. They were fascinating from an anthropological perspective, but militarily and technologically insignificant. The Empire had placed Earth on a watch list for potential future contact once humans developed further, then promptly forgot about them. There were thousands of primitive species in the galaxy. Humans were just one more. That is impossible, Fexner said flatly. Humans do not have interstellar capability. They certainly do not have vessels capable of surviving the dead zone. I know, Admiral, Krex replied, his voice shaking slightly, but the design match is 97% accurate, and there is more. The energy signature from that ship is unlike anything in our records. The power output is comparable to our largest dreadnoughts, but the ship is a fraction of the size. Before the Nor could respond, the communication station came alive. Officer Talon responsible for all incoming transmissions, turned toward the Admiral. With an expression of shock, "Admiral, we are receiving a hail from the unknown vessel, audio and visual. They are using standard galactic communication protocols. How did a human ship know galactic protocols? How did they even know the Empire existed? Nothing about this made sense. Put it on screen, faxed." Nor ordered, his voice steady despite his racing thoughts. The main viewing window flickered and changed. The image of empty space was replaced by the interior of the mysterious ship. The bridge was surprisingly mundane, clean. White walls, banks of computer terminals, with flat screens, chairs that looked almost comfortable, and in the center of the frame sat a human. She was small, perhaps 1.5 meters tall, with dark skin and black hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She wore a dark blue uniform with golden insignia on the shoulders. Her face was smooth, her features delicate by Varathian standards. She had only 2 eyes, which seemed strange and insufficient, but those 2 eyes were bright, intelligent, and completely calm. The human smiled. It was a friendly expression, warm and genuine. When she spoke, her words were automatically translated by the ship's systems into Varathian language. "Greetings, my name is Captain Sarah Chin of the Earth vessel Wanderer. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. The dead zone is quite turbulent, but we managed to navigate through it successfully. I hope we have not alarmed you." FX Nor stared at the human on his screen, her casual tone, her relaxed posture, her complete lack of fear or submission. Everything about this moment felt wrong. "You are human," he said, stating the obvious because his mind could not yet process the implications. "Yes, that is correct," Chin replied pleasantly. "We have been monitoring the situation in this region for some time. We are aware of your conflict with the Krello swarm. We have observed the devastating losses your empire has suffered. We believe we can help." The bridge crew exchanged glances of utter confusion. A human offering help to the Varathian Empire was absurd. It was like an insect offering to help a giant. "Help?" Thexer managed to say. "You wish to help us?" Chin nodded. "Yes, Admiral. That is why we have come. Humanity has developed certain technologies and capabilities over the past few centuries that may prove useful in combating the Krello threat. We would like to offer our assistance." Thex Nor felt anger rising in his chest, competing with confusion and disbelief. "Human, your species was barely capable of reaching your own moon when last we observed you. You could not possibly have technology relevant to a conflict of this scale." For the first time, Captain Chin's smile faded slightly. Her expression became more serious, more focused. "Admiral, with respect, your last observation of humanity was 417 years ago. Much has changed since then. We have changed, and what you believe about humans is no longer accurate." Before Thexer could respond, Silvara stepped forward. "Admiral, I recommend we dispatch an intercept squadron. We should capture this vessel and interrogate its crew. If humans have achieved technological advances, the Empire must know how." It was standard procedure. It was logical. It was what Thexer should order, but something in Captain Chen's eyes made him hesitate. She did not look worried. She did not look afraid. She looked patient, like someone waiting for others to understand something obvious. "Captain," Chinks Nor said slowly, "you have entered Verithian space without authorization. You have emerged from an impossible location in an unexplained vessel. You claim capabilities you cannot possibly possess. I'm going to send ships to escort you to our main station where you will be detained and questioned. Chin sighed softly. It was a very human sound expressing disappointment and resignation. I had hoped it would not come to this, Admiral, but I understand. You have ruled this galaxy for so long that you cannot imagine anyone being your equal. Very well, send your ships. But I must warn you, for their safety and yours, do not attempt to use force. We do not wish to harm anyone. The audacity of this statement would have been amusing if it were not so insulting. This tiny human in her tiny ship was warning the Vathian Empire. Theixner made his decision. Launch intercept. Squadron 5, disable that vessel and bring it in. Non-lethal force authorized, but if they resist, destroy them. As the orders were transmitted, and 5 Vathian warships began moving toward the human vessel, FX Nor watched Captain Chin on the screen. She had not moved, she had not panicked, she simply sat in her chair looking sad and tired. I truly wish you had chosen differently, she said quietly. Then the communication cut off. The human ship waited alone in the darkness as 5 Verithian warships, each 10 times its size and armed with enough firepower to obliterate a city, moved into attack formation around it. Admiral Thex Nor watched from his bridge, confident this strange mystery would be solved in the next few minutes. He had no idea that everything he believed about the galaxy was about to change forever. Demonstration of power. Commander Zactyl stood on the bridge of his heavy cruiser, Crimson Talon, watching the small human vessel grow larger on his tactical display. Behind him, 4 more Verithian warships moved into formation, creating a perfect encirclement pattern. Each ship was a masterpiece of Verithian military engineering, bristling with plasma cannons, missile batteries, and energy weapons capable of reducing asteroids to dust. Together, they represented enough firepower to conquer most primitive civilizations single-handedly. The human ship hung motionless in space, making no attempt to flee or maneuver. It simply waited, its blue running lights pulsing gently along its hull like a calm heartbeat. Zactyl had commanded warships for 70 years. He had fought in 32 major engagements. He had destroyed pirate fleets, crushed rebellions, and subjugated defiant worlds. Never in all that time had he encountered prey that simply waited to be captured. It was either extreme arrogance or extreme stupidity, and he suspected the latter. All ships report status, Zactyl commanded. His voice echoed across the communication channel, linking all 5 vessels. Talon 2 weapons charged and locked. Talon 3 in position and ready. Talon 4 targeting systems optimal. Talon 5 standing by for your orders, Commander. Zettal nodded with satisfaction. The formation was perfect. The human ship could not escape. He opened a direct communication channel to the vessel, following proper military protocol, even though he expected no meaningful response. Attention, unknown vessel. This is Commander Zettal of the Verithian Imperial Navy. You have violated our space and ignored lawful commands. Power down your systems immediately and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. For a long moment there was no response. The human ship continued its gentle drift through Space, seemingly unconcerned with the overwhelming military force surrounding it. Then a voice came through the communication system, feminine and calm, speaking in perfect Vorathian language. Commander Zactyl, this is Captain Sarah Chin. I must respectfully decline your demand, as I explained to Admiral Thex. Nor we have come to offer assistance. Not to surrender. I strongly advise you to withdraw your vessels and allow us to speak peacefully. Zetao felt his face flush with anger. The sheer audacity of this human was beyond comprehension. You are in no position to give advice. Human, you are surrounded by 5 warships, each of which could destroy your vessel with a single volley. Surrender now or face the consequences. There was a pause, then Captain Chin spoke again. Her tone had shifted slightly, becoming more formal and serious. Commander, please understand that I do not wish harm upon you or your crews. What you are about to attempt will not succeed, and forcing me to demonstrate our capabilities will only damage the trust we hope to build with your empire. I am asking you one final time to stand down. The presumption was too much. Zactyl had been insulted by this primitive species long enough. All ships target the human vessel, disable their propulsion and weapon systems. Fire on my mark. The bridge crew of the Crimson Tone worked swiftly, their hands moving across holographic controls. Similar activity occurred on the 4 other warships, targeting computers locked onto the human ship's hull. Energy weapons charged to full power. Missile tubes opened, revealing their deadly payloads. The human vessel made no defensive maneuvers. It did not activate shields. It did not turn to present a smaller target. It simply floated there as if accepting its fate. Mark, Zactyl said coldly. 5 Varathian warships fired simultaneously. The space between them and the human vessel lit up with deadly energy. Plasma beams, bright blue and crackling with power, lanced across the darkness. Kinetic missiles streak forward, their engines burning white-hot. Energy pulses rippled through the vacuum, each one carrying enough force to penetrate a meter of solid armor. The combined barrage represented the concentrated fury of Vathian military might, enough firepower to level an entire city district in seconds. The weapon struck the human ship directly, and then something impossible happened. A barrier appeared around the vessel, a shimmering field of golden light that materialized instantly upon impact. The plasma beams hit this barrier and simply stopped. Their energy absorbed and dispersed harmlessly across the glowing surface. The missiles exploded against it, creating brilliant flashes that faded without leaving a mark. The energy pulses splashed across the field like water hitting stone. The human ship remained completely undamaged. Not a scratch, not a dent, not even a scorch mark. It floated within its golden shield as pristine as before, utterly untouched. Zactyl stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His weapons officer turned toward him, face pale. Commander, sensors show 0 damage to the target. Our weapons had no effect whatsoever. The energy shield absorbed everything. That is impossible, Zetao said, but even as he spoke he knew he was wrong. He had just witnessed it with his own eyes. Increased power to maximum. All ships full barrage. Now the 5 warships unleashed everything they had. Every weapon system fired at once. The space around the human vessel became a storm of destructive energy. hundreds of missiles, dozens of plasma beams, countless energy pulses, all converging on a single small target. The golden shield brightened, glowing more intensely as it absorbed the massive assault. For a moment, Zactyl felt a flicker of hope that perhaps overwhelming force would succeed, but that hope died quickly. The shield held firm, not a single weapon penetrated it. The human ship sat within its protective bubble, completely safe, completely untouchable. Zactyl was about to order a third volley when his sensor officer shouted an alarm. "Commander, the human vessel is moving." On the tactical display, the small ship suddenly accelerated, but acceleration was the wrong word. It did not gradually build up speed. It did not fire engines. It simply appeared in a different location, instantaneously, as if space itself had been folded. One moment the human ship was in the center of the Vorathian formation. The next moment it was beside the Crimson Talon, so close that Zactyl could see it through the viewing windows of his own bridge. Evasive maneuvers, he screamed, but his crew had no time to react. From the human vessel, thin beams of light emerged. They were not like Varathian weapons, thick and destructive. These beams were precise, delicate, almost surgical. Their appearance, they were a brilliant white color that seemed to cut through the darkness with perfect clarity. The beams touched the Crimson Talon's hull, and where they touched, metal simply parted, not melted, not exploded, just separated cleanly, as if being cut by an impossibly sharp blade. Zactyl felt his ship shudder as the beams carved through it with terrifying precision. Alarms blared, his crew shouted warnings, but even in his panic, he noticed something strange. The beams were not cutting randomly, they were targeting specific systems. He watched on his internal monitors as the weapons arrays were sliced away from the hull. The main engine assemblies were severed from their mountings. The shield generators were carved into useless pieces, but the life support sections remained untouched. The crew quarters were unharmed. The medical bay was perfectly intact. In less than 15 seconds, the Crimson Talon had been transformed from a deadly warship into a floating piece of scrap metal. Every offensive and defensive system had been destroyed with surgical precision, but not a single crew member had been injured. The ship was dead in space, powerless, harmless. But everyone aboard was alive. Zactyl stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the emergency lights that had activated when main power failed. Through the viewing window, he could see the human vessel. It had already moved again, appearing next to Talon 2. The same white beams emerged, the same precise cutting began. He watched helplessly as his second ship was disabled in the same manner. Then Talon 3, then Talon 4, then Talon 5. The human ship moved between them like a ghost, like something that existed outside normal physics. It did not fly through space, it simply moved from point to point instantaneously, and wherever it went, it left disabled Varathian warships in its wake. The entire engagement lasted 47 seconds. 47 seconds to completely neutralize 5 of the Vathian Empire's most powerful warships without killing a single person. When it was over, the human vessel returned to its original position and simply stopped, waiting peacefully, as if nothing had happened. Zactyl's communication system crackled to life. Captain Chen's voice came through, still calm, still professional. "Commander, Zactyl, are you and your crew unharmed? He could not find his voice for a moment. His throat felt dry, his hands were shaking. Finally he managed to speak. We are alive. All ships report casualties. What are you? I am human. Shin replied simply. I told you that a tempting force would not succeed. I'm sorry it had to come to this, but you gave me no choice. Please inform your crews that rescue vessels arrive soon. You will all be safely recovered aboard the Eternal Vigil. Admiral Thex nor watched the engagement with his entire bridge crew. The tactical display showed everything. 5 Varathian warships dead and drifting. One small human vessel completely undamaged sitting calmly in space. Silence on the bridge was absolute. No one spoke, no one moved. They simply stared at the display, trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Silvara was the first to break the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. Admiral, that ship demonstrated technology centuries beyond our own. The shield system, the propulsion, the weapons precision, everything about it is impossible by our understanding of physics. Vexner did not respond. He was thinking about the power readings Craigs had mentioned earlier. A ship that small should not be able to generate that much energy. It should not be able to move like that. It should not be able to defeat 5 warships without breaking its stride, yet it had done all those things effortlessly, as if it were the simplest task in the universe. Communication system activated. Captain Chin appeared on the main screen again. She looked tired, now disappointed. Admiral Thex, nor I had truly hoped to avoid that demonstration. Now do you understand? Humanity has changed. We have advanced beyond what you believe possible, and we are here to help you. Not to conquer you. Thanks, nor found himself staring at this small human woman with new eyes, not as a primitive, not as an inferior species, but as something he had never encountered before, something that challenged every assumption the Vathian Empire had held for 12,000 years. How, he asked, his voice rough, how did you achieve this? Chin leaned forward in her chair. Because we had to, Admiral. Humanity learned long ago that the universe does not care about what should be possible. It only cares about what is possible. When we encountered problems that others declared unsolvable, we did not accept that answer. We kept trying, we kept innovating, we kept pushing forward until we found solutions. She paused, then continued with growing intensity. 300 years ago, we could barely leave our own solar system, but we dreamed of traveling the stars, so we solved faster than light travel in ways others never imagined. We faced energy limitations that would have stopped other species, so we developed power systems that seemed impossible by conventional understanding. We encountered hostile environments that should have killed us, so we created defensive technologies that could withstand anything. Every obstacle we faced became a challenge to overcome, not a reason to give up. Vexner listened, and for the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before: humility. You said you are here to help us against the Krello, he said quietly. One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stop a swarm of billions. Chin smiled, but it was not a triumphant smile. It was understanding, almost gentle. You are correct, Admiral. The Wanderer alone cannot stop the Krello, but I am not alone. I'm merely the first the ambassador sent to make contact and Offer our assistance. Behind me, waiting. In the dark spaces between stars is the human fleet. She stood from her chair, her figure somehow seeming larger than her small physical form. 300 ships. Admiral, each one more advanced than the Wanderer, vessels designed specifically for large-scale warfare. Weapons that can strike across light years, defensive systems that could shield your entire home world, and soldiers, warriors who have trained their entire lives for moments like this. We have been preparing for the day when we would step onto the galactic stage. That day has arrived. The screen showed data suddenly transmitted from the Wanderer star. Charts, energy signatures, sensor readings, all of it confirming what Chin claimed. Hundreds of ships holding position in deep space waiting for orders. That's felt the weight of history pressing down on him. The decision he made in the next few minutes would define the future of the Vorthian Empire and perhaps the entire galaxy. What do you want from us? He asked. Chen's expression softened. What humanity has always wanted, Admiral, to not be alone, to be part of something larger, to share knowledge and friendship with other species. We do not want to conquer you. We do not want to replace you. We simply want you to recognize that we are here, that we are capable, and that we are willing to stand beside you as equals. She extended her hand in a very human gesture, as if reaching across the vast distance between their ships. The Krell will reach your position in less than 20 hours. They will destroy everything you have built unless someone stops them. Let us be that someone. Accept our alliance. Fight beside us, and together we will drive this threat back into the darkness from which it came. All we ask is respect, recognition, a place at the table when the great powers of the galaxy meet. Thexer looked around his bridge. He saw the faces of his crew, the officers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. He saw their fear, their confusion, but also their hope. They knew they were losing. They knew the Krell would eventually overwhelm them, but here was an alternative. Here was a chance if we accept. Thexer said slowly, the Empire will never be the same. We will have to admit that we were wrong about humanity. We will have to share power with a species we once dismissed as insignificant. Captain Chin nodded. Yes. And that will be difficult for your people. Pride is not easily surrendered. But consider the alternative, Admiral. If you refuse our help, the Krell will consume your empire within a year. Everything you have built, every world you protect, every person who depends on you will be lost. Is pride worth that price? She extended her hand in a very human gesture, as if reaching across the vast distance between their ships. Krell will reach your position in less than 20 hours. They will destroy everything you have built unless someone stops them. Let us be that someone. Accept our alliance, fight beside us, and together we will drive this threat back into the darkness from which it came. All we ask is respect, recognition, place at the table when the great powers of the galaxy meet. Thexer looked around his bridge. He saw the faces of his crew, the officers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. He saw their fear, their confusion, but also their hope. They knew they were losing. They knew the Krell would eventually overwhelm them, but here was an alternative. Here was a chance if we accept. Thexer said slowly, the Empire will never be the same. We will have to admit that we were wrong about humanity. We will have to share power with a Species we once dismissed as insignificant, Captain Chin nodded. Yes. And that will be difficult for your people. Pride is not easily surrendered. But consider the alternative, Admiral. If you refuse our help, the Krell will consume your empire within a year. Everything you have built, every world you protect, every person who depends on you will be lost. Is pride worth that price? The question hung in the air. Nor knew the answer before he even consciously thought about it. He had been a soldier for over a century. He had dedicated his life to protecting the empire and its people. His personal pride, even the collective pride of his entire species, meant nothing compared to survival. Send me the coordinates of your fleet, he said finally. We will prepare joint operations against the Krell. Humanity will fight beside the Vathian Empire as equals. On the screen, Captain Sarachin smiled with genuine warmth and relief. Thank you, Admiral. You have made the right choice. I promise you, humanity will not let you down. As the communication ended, Thex Nor turned to face his bridge crew. They looked at him with questions in their eyes, waiting for leadership, waiting for reassurance. Contact the High Council, he ordered. Inform them that first contact has been made with an advanced human civilization. Inform them that the balance of power in the galaxy has shifted, and inform them that the age of Varathian dominance is over. New era has begun. Through the viewing window, he could see the small human ship still glowing with its gentle blue lights. It looked so unassuming, so harmless, but Thexer knew better now. That small vessel represented something far more significant than advanced technology or military power. It represented the end of assumptions, the end of complacency, the end of believing that the galaxy would remain forever unchanged. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. In the darkness beyond, hidden in the spaces between stars, 300 human warships waited for the signal to emerge. They were ready, they were prepared, and very soon the Krell would learn what the Vathians had just discovered. Humanity did not accept the impossible. They simply found another way, and that made them the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever encountered.